Football is finally here. It's right around the corner. That's right, Chargers fans. We can all taste it. Obviously, the Chargers are going to have rookies report tomorrow. And so I thought it would be fun on today's show to go out and look at the top position battles for this team. Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Will Ortner. And the first position battle that I am going to have my eyes on is going to be over at the outside linebacker position for this team. Now, I think a lot of people hear position battles and instantly go, okay, so we're talking about who's going to be the starter. And that's actually not what we're going to talk about on this position battle. Because when you look at the linebacker depth chart for this team, specifically at that edge rusher spot, it's pretty clear who's going to be the top guys, right? We know it's going to be Tuli. We know it's going to be Khalil Mack. We know that those guys are going to be in those positions. And we also know that General Manager Joe Ortiz spent a first-round pick on Ahkeem Mesidor. So he isn't going anywhere either. So we know that the Chargers are going to have three guys that are pretty locked and loaded in the position that they are in. They are going to be expected to have high performances for this team. They are going to be expected to go out and play their you-know-what off every single week for the Los Angeles Chargers. But you don't just have three edge rushers on a given team, especially with a team that's going to employ the new style of defense that defensive coordinator Chris O'Leary is going to want to employ, right? It is a defense that is going to take a lot of the same and have similarities to Jesse Minter's defense, but it is going to have its own unique spin. So you know you're going to need at least one more, potentially two more edge rushers. So that position battle that we're looking at is more so for that fourth and potentially that fifth, although that still does seem a bit excessive for a team, but you never know. So when you look at who's going to be the fourth edge rusher on this team, I think there's a couple different guys that it could be. Nadame Tucker, obviously someone who came to the Chargers as a UDFA, was playing for Chris O'Leary when he was over there in the college football ranks. Kennard is someone who's been able to play in the National Football League, had some success. And then Bud Dupree, if this was 4 or 5 years ago, you'd be saying, oh, sweet, Chargers got Bud Dupree. What are we talking about? Having a fourth edge rusher, having a position battle here. He'd be clearly that person. Probably be clearly the third or the second guy. That's how talented Bud Dupree was. But it's not 5 years ago. It is today. And so when you look at this position battle between this crew, I feel like you are going to see this thing go all the way to the final cut down day. Now, what is important to remember for all of us is that as well as Dame Tucker has played, the other two obviously have had experience in the National Football League. They know what it takes to be a professional. But if you've been paying attention to Chargers Now, hopefully you're subscribed. If you're not, do so quickly. You would have heard the different OTA and minicamp updates that we have had here on the channel, and you would have heard about the different players like Dame Tucker that had a very good OTA session and had very good mandatory minicamp and showed that they were going to be quality players in the National Football League for the Los Angeles Chargers, or at least for an extended period of time. I think that we're going to see the UDFA make this team, and I certainly think that he's going to make a pretty good impression. What position battle are you most interested in? Go down below in our comment section. Let us know. Who are you most excited to see play for the Chargers because you think they're going to win a position battle that they're already in? Don't say Justin Herbert. He's not in a position battle. Next position battle that I think is going to be interesting to look at is that safety position battle, and that's why I have it in at number 4. Now, again, this is not going to be a question of, is someone going to beat out Derwin James? That's not the case. Derwin James is locked and loaded, and really he's more of a nickel anyways. But there is a question around who is going to be that third or fourth safety for this team. I think it's easy to look at this crew and say, yeah, I feel comfortable with Tony Jefferson. Yeah, I feel comfortable with Elijah Molden. But who's going to be that next guy? Is it going to be Genesis Smith, or is it going to be R.J. Mickens? Because those two certainly seem to have put themselves into a position where we will be talking about them as that extra guy. We'll discuss that more in just a moment, but first, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. With the football season right around the corner, there's no better time to cash in with our friends at Prize Picks. And I'll tell you this, the app is really easy to use. For player picks, just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. That's it. Prize Picks is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. One thing I love is the new social feeds feature, where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. You can actually follow me on the app at BigWill7774 to see all of my lineups. I have a lineup for the football action going on later on this year. Quentin Johnston, more on his receiving TDs. Kenyon Sadiq, more on his receiving TDs. Jackson Smith and Jigba, more on his receiving TDs. New user offer. Best of all, play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right. Prize Picks just switched up their offers, so there's no better time to join. Lock in and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at signup to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 plus lineup. So that safety position battle that we were already discussing is going to simply be between two guys that, in my opinion, can really show what they are going to be, not just for right now, but for the future of themselves and their careers in the National Football League. Genesis Smith is obviously someone who was just drafted. R.J. Mickens is still a very young player, but someone who's seen a lot of success for the Chargers. There were a lot of injuries last year, and so the Chargers had to call on Mickens more than probably they were hoping to or were expecting to. But he came up in a big way. Now, he was primarily a special teams guy, but that doesn't mean that if called upon, he can't do well in the back end of this defensive secondary. I certainly look at his skill set and I say, yeah, that's a guy that I'd want out on the field for this team. But I'm also not going to sit here and say that I don't want Genesis Smith out on the field for this team either. When you look at his stats, he ended up having 5 interceptions in college football, and that was for an Arizona team that, frankly, wasn't all that good. Every single year, he got more tackles. Every single year, he got more pass breakups. He was someone that opposing defenses could not test. He's a great back-end safety, and he's certainly someone that can add into the special teams unit for this squad. I certainly think he can put himself into a position where he earns a lot of playing time for this team. This is going to be a fun battle because it's really who's going to be that third or fourth, depending on what you want to consider Derwin James. I kind of give him his own position. Who's going to be that third safety? Who's going to be that extra guy that this team holds on to? And who's that extra guy that's going to be the first one off the bench if there is an injury? I think at this point as Chargers fans, we all have to be aware that if something does end up happening to a player, this team is certainly going to need a lot of depth. The amount of injuries last year really hampered what the Chargers wanted to do. So make sure that you have a solid back-end safety core. Certainly seems like the Chargers are going to have that. This is the rare battle. I don't want to say the only one because it's not, but this is the rare battle where I don't think anyone necessarily gets cut, but I certainly think that there is a true blue position battle for who's going to be the number one wide receiver for this Los Angeles Chargers team. I think right now when you look at the depth chart, it's easy for a lot of people to say, well, it's going to be Quentin Johnston or it's going to be Ladd McConkey because those are the two that have the most amount of time out on the field, and they've also spent the most amount of time in Los Angeles. Now, again, I'm not going to come in here and poo-poo any of the other players in this unit. I certainly think Trey Harris has a lot of room for success. I certainly think that Brendan Thompson has a lot of room for success. But you need veterans to be your number one. You can't just go in and base your decision strictly and solely on that top-end crew. So when I look at these two, it needs to be Johnston or it needs to be Ladd McConkey. You can't just rely on rookies. When you look at these two, I think that there is a lot of room for each of them to grow this next season, and I certainly think that they will. McConkey's been great as a possession catcher. McConkey has been great as a elite route runner down low and doing the dirty work and catching a lot of balls in the slot. I think, though, that what you're going to see this year is Quentin Johnston have a real emergence. I think we are going to see Quentin Johnston finally be the wide receiver one that we all knew he could be when he was drafted to the Los Angeles Chargers. I certainly think that Mike McDaniel has a game plan for this Chargers team, and I certainly think that Johnston is going to fit into that mold. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on today's video. We have a ton of content that we're going to be getting out to you every single day on the Los Angeles Chargers. It's our first full year covering the team, so make sure that you don't miss out on any of it by hitting that sub button. The second position battle that's going to be fun is that tight end room. Now, this is the reason why I said I didn't want to say that it's the only battle where no one got cut because, well, neither of these guys is going to be cut at that tight end position. But who is going to be tight end number one? When you look at the Chargers depth chart right now, obviously there are a lot of players that have had success throughout their career. Kohler and Njoku were brought in to help kind of push this crew forward. But when you look at Oronde Gadsden, he is the rare form of a rookie showing just how talented that he was, and it feels like he's more than likely going to be penciled into that number one position. He is a tight end that is elite when it comes to his ball skills, able to come down with a lot of catches. He's also certainly someone who has shown that he is not afraid to block. But at the same time, you can't sit here and look at David Njoku and say that he is not someone that can certainly add to this team and potentially be that number one tight end. Now, while we've seen his yardage go down, we've also seen him deal with more injuries, and you've also seen him deal with way worse quarterback play when he was in Cleveland. I certainly think that David Njoku can go in here and challenge for that tight end one spot. So then it leads to the question, who is going to be number one? I don't feel like Charlie Kohler can get into that conversation, but crazier things have happened. I just look at those two, and to me, I am fascinated to know who's going to be the tight end one, and I'm also fascinated to be in the know on who's going to be tight end two, because whoever that is, that guy's going to get a ton of run as well. We've got more to discuss, but before we do that, I need to let you know that today's show is also made possible by SeatGeek. When it's time to get out of the house, there's not many better options right now than a ball game. And with SeatGeek being MLB's official ticket marketplace, your tickets are fully guaranteed and instantly fulfilled in your account after purchase. I was hitting up the cousins down in LA. Thought it would be fun to go on SeatGeek and look at some Chargers tickets. Now, you know us. We're looking at that opening day game against the Cardinals. I'm always looking for the best deals possible, so I'm looking for those green dots. And I want to get as close to the action as I possibly can. Whether it's a Chargers game with a special lady friend or a co-Wetzel concert with the boys, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So look for the green dots. Green means good. Red means bad. And of course, I have a code for you guys. Use code CHAT10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with the promo code CHAT10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you so very much, SeatGeek. The most important position battle for the Los Angeles Chargers is obviously the left guard position. I think we all know this right now. The offensive line last year was horrific. It was no good. And you can see that the Chargers have rebuilt this offensive line. Tyler Biadasz signing in free agency was a huge deal for this team. Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt returning from injury, big deal for the squad. Now, of course, Cole Strange, he was a signing in free agency that I think a lot of Charger fans were kind of hoping wouldn't necessarily end up being a starter, more of a competing for the starter. He's kind of put himself in that spot. Right now, when you're looking at everything that we know from OTAs and minicamp, Kayode Awosika, he's been the one who's been in that first spot for the Chargers. So when I look at this position battle, it certainly feels like there are three guys that are going to be fighting there for that number one spot. Kayode Awosika is one. Jake Slaughter, you drafted him really high, even though he originally played center. He is someone who's put himself in a fighting position for that. And then Trevor Penning, who is a backup guard for this team previously. Now, to me, I think it's pretty clear when you look at these three players, this is Kayode Awosika's job to lose. He has gone through OTAs at minicamp and put himself ahead of everyone else. He's worked his butt off, and he's also a veteran, so you know you can trust him. Not saying that Slaughter can't be trusted, but when you're not a veteran, sometimes it's like, hey, you need an extra year or two to fully develop and be what you want to be. I think it's going to be Awosika's, but I do want to make sure that I ask you, pretend you're Joe Ortiz. Let us know what player you think is going to be the starting left guard for the Los Angeles Chargers. Type JS if you think it's going to be Jake Slaughter. Type TP if you think it's Trevor Penning. Or type KA if you think it's Kayode Awosika. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. We really appreciate you coming in, hanging out with us. It always means the world. Thank you for joining us. Can't wait for football to be back in action. Before we leave, though, As always, make sure you bolt up.